Hi, and welcome to part 2 of this PowerShell tutorial series around the event viewer. In the first video, we went over the get-eventlog commandlet to interact with the event viewer. So we were looking specifically for audit failures, so failed logins. So we can see here, I already have the code that we made in the last video. And if we just run this part here, right now, it does take quite a bit of time. It takes roughly about a minute or so. But we'll see our results here, and it'll show us all the failed logins grouped by what user tried the login, and then all the actual data is stored, so the computer that tried to log in and the IP as well. Today we are going to be looking at the Get-WinEvent commandlet, so it's a little bit different in terms of your options for parameters, but it does the exact same thing, but it is a lot faster if you can use XPATH or XML filtering. So let's go ahead and let's get started on that one. So the first thing we're going to want to do is just set up the actual basic commandlet here, which is going to be get-WinEvent. Oops, not wind event, but WinEvent. So here we have it. So the first parameter we're going to have is definitely the log name, because we want to grab everything that's in that security log. Now, the other options that we get now is filter XPath. But if we remove the log name and we just go like this, we actually get filter XPath, filter XML. And you could also do a filter by hash table. I might do this in a second part to this video. We're going to be focusing on the XML and the XPath because those two are very, very similar. And I find that XPath is very good to work with. It's a little bit confusing at first, but once you get it down pat, it's definitely a lot easier. So we'll be looking at the filter XML first. So this one is actually a little bit easy because all you need to do is you just need to go into your event viewer. And then all you would need to do is do a filter current log. And then here you have all the options. So let's do in the last hour. And let's do the event sources. Let's do, it should be Microsoft Windows security auditing, I believe. So let's just scroll down here and we should see Microsoft Windows security auditing right here. All right, and then let's just look for the event ID specifically. We already know we want to look for event ID 4625. 625. All right, so then if we look at the XML, it actually creates the full XML query that we need to actually execute. So if we just copy this, and then we go back into our PowerShell window here. Let's just push this down a little bit and actually create a variable called XML filter. And then we're going to make this a literal string. So what that is just the @ symbol and then a single quote, and then just press enter a few times and then do a single quote and then an @ symbol there. And all we're going to do is we're just going to paste in our XML in there. And then in here for the filter XML, we are going to pass in our XML filter. So if we run this, we should get our data that we eventually got down to this. So if we just execute this here, so there's all of our events right now. So as we did in the last one, we actually took those events and we went into the actual object and created our own object with better, more user-friendly names, and we were able to do some sorting on them. So let's go ahead and let's do that with the get-WinEvent here. So let's store all these events in a variable called events. And then we're going to do for each event in events. We're just going to capitalize the E here. And we're going to close the parentheses and then open and close curly brackets. And as I always do is I just like to run this so I get everything. So as you can already see, when we run this query, it is a lot faster. The get-WinEvent with the XML filter or the XPATH filter is quite a bit quicker, and we can actually do a measure command at the end of this video to see how much faster it is. But let's just go ahead and let's just see how we can actually get these events filtered down. So as we did the last time, if we just look at event, so we have our first event here, and if we do a dot on it, we can see all the options. So we have the ID of it, we have the level, we have the log name, the machine name, some properties, and we also have the message. So if we look at the message, once again, just like the get event log, the message is definitely hard to work with. It has all the information we need, but very hard to work with. Now, with the get-WinEvent, compared to when we worked with the get-eventlog, we had dot replacement strings. With get-WinEvent, it is actually just dot properties, and we get the exact same values here. Now, the nice thing about replacement strings and the dot properties, the actual indexes, I believe, stay the same. So we can actually check that by just doing that for each loop exactly like we did the last time. So let's do a for each open parentheses $x in 0 dot dot $event dot properties dot count, and then a close parentheses, then open and close curly brackets. And then in here, we are going to do a write output. We are going to write out the X value, and then the event. Oops. We need to wrap this in a $ open and close parentheses as a variable wrapper. Then we're going to reference event dot properties, and then we're going to reference our X value. Now, if I just run this, let's see what it gives us. All right, so it does give us the numbers, but then it gives us this weird system.diagnostics.eventing.reader.event property. That is because we need to add a dot value to the end here. And then if we just run this, now we can see all of our values. So we can see that our username is still 5. Our domain is still 6. Our client name that tried is 13 still, and then our IP address is 19. So those are exactly the same here. So they are quite interchangeable. The only thing that you really have to look out for is make sure that you're using the right replacement string or properties depending on which commandlet you ended up using. So let's go ahead and let's just do username tried, and that's going to be equal to event dot properties, and that's going to be at 5, and we're going to do value, and we are just going to copy paste this 4 times, and we are going to change this to domain tried, then client name from, and then client IP from. And then the domain is at index 6. The client name is at 13. And then the IP is at 19. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and create that object here. So let's just create again our array list up here. So we're going to do a $log equals square bracket, close square bracket. And inside the square bracket, we're going to set that to system.collections.arraylist, and then we're just going to set that to an empty array here. And inside of our for each loop, we are going to go ahead and call it a log entry, and we are going to set that to a new object, type name PS object, and we're going to add members here. So we're going to add properties to it. So our first value we're going to want to add to it is going to be, so we need to pass in the log entry to the add member first. And member type is going to be a note property. Then our first one is going to be username. So username tried. And then the value for that is going to be username tried. So again, we're just going to copy this line because there's no point in rewriting out this line a bunch of times. So then the only thing we need to change here is domain tried for the name here. And then this one is going to be client name from. And this one is going to be client IP from. And then domain tried, client name from, and then client IP from here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a log.add log entry. And again, just to remove that output to the console, we are going to add a square and close square bracket with the word void in front of it. And that's going to get rid of that. And then we could do a log group object. And we're going to group the object by username tried. So if we run all of this here, we get all of our results back almost instantaneously. And then if we go back to our event log from yesterday, let's just remove this one. It does take quite a bit more time compared to our Get-WinEvent. So again, like the Get-WinEvent was super easy to build with the filter XML because you could just use the event viewer to really build out that XML and then just copy paste it. You really don't have to do any work for that filter. So that's how you would use that XML filter with Get-WinEvent. So now the other one that I talked to you guys a bit about at the beginning is the XPATH. XPATH is slightly complicated at first. I was really confused when I first used it, but now I'm definitely feeling a little bit more confident in it. And it definitely makes the queries a little bit easier to read. It takes up a lot less room. It's going to take up one line, and it's actually just going to be on the same line as your commandlet. So it's super useful. It's just as fast. So let's go ahead and let's get started on that one here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do our Get-WinEvent here. And then we are going to do a log name is going to be security. Because I do need to add that in this case. And then we are going to do a filter XPath. Now in here, we can do double quotes or you could do single quotes. It's completely up to you. And especially depending on if you were going to be using variables inside, I would do double quotes. So let's just use double quotes just to be ready for any future changes in case we want to use variables in here. So our filter XPath is going to be based on our, so in your event viewer, when you go look at your event, typically you look at it in the friendly view and you have a system and event data, but you could also look at it through the XML view, which this will have all the same data, just in an XML format. Now the XPath works off of this XML format. So what we want to do is, let's say we want to grab this event. So this event is going to be this root object here. So we're going to want to go into the event. We are going to want to go into system. And we're going to want to grab everything with the provider name of Microsoft Windows Security Auditing and the event ID of 4625. And then the time created, we want something of in the last hour. So this should be fairly easy to actually build out, and then we can add on to it. So let's go back into our PowerShell here. So as we know, the first item was event, and then we just need to put a square bracket and close square bracket. So what that gets us in here, in this first node, the event node. Now the next one we're going to want to go into is going to be system. So let's go and add that in here. So we're going to do system, and then we're going to do an open and close square bracket. So now we're inside of system. Now the next one we want to do is we want to get the provider, and we want to get the name of Microsoft Windows Security Auditing. So provider is the tag name, and then name is actually an attribute of provider. So the way that we would do that is we would put in the tag of provider here. And then we're going to do an open and close square bracket again. And we are going to do @name, and we're going to do equals single quote, single quote. And then we are just going to go ahead and paste this in here. So that's just the Microsoft Security Auditing System. Microsoft Windows Security Auditing. And then that is our provider. So this is the square bracket for name. This is the square bracket for provider. And then this is the square bracket for system. That should be okay. So if we just run this, we're going to see that we get all the Microsoft Windows security auditing events. But now we only want the events with the ID of 4625. So in this case, it's still in system. It's right after provider, and its event ID is going to be 4625. So all we need to do now is going to be in this one. So it's going to be right after your name. And then because name is in system and in provider, so in here we should be able to do and event ID equals 4625. So if we run this here, now we only get the events that are 4625 and Microsoft Windows Security Auditing. But we get all of them. So we get even the ones from a couple days ago. Now we only really want the ones for the last hour for our script because we're going to be automating it. Well, let's say we're going to be automating it to run every hour, and we want it to send emails just for the events in the last hour. So this is where we have to come down into the time created system time. So this is the time that it was created. So let's go ahead and let's go back into our PowerShell window here. Now this one is going to be also in system, so we can put it directly after the event ID. This is going to be and time created. And now time created is also, that's the system time is an attribute of the time created tag. So let's go into the system time. But now the only thing that we want to do is we also want the time difference. We only want the events in the last hour. And it's just frozen for me here. Give me 2 seconds. Hopefully it'll come back. There you go. All right, so time created. So what we want to do is an open and close square bracket here. Just giving me a little bit of delays here. Seems that we've lost connection. So let me just make the connection again and I will be right back. Oh, it's actually came back right away. So that was weird. Maybe just something on my network that caused a little bit of delay here. So we have time created, and then we're going to want to do the time difference. So that is going to be time diff. And we're going to want to reference the at system time because that is the attribute. Now here we are going to do a less than or equals. Now this is actually in milliseconds. So just to go over the millisecond calculations that I'm doing, this is going to be, we want 1 hour. So 1 hour has 60 minutes. Each minute has 60 seconds. Each second has 1,000 milliseconds. So we have, I believe that is the right number. So that should be 3,600,000. 3,600,000. So if we run this now we only get the events within the last hour. So that is super awesome. So what we're going to go ahead and do is let's just go ahead and let's store this into a variable called events. And since this is the get-WinEvent, we are actually just going to simply copy from our script that we just did for the get-WinEvent to create that log. So we're just going to paste this in here. And let's just go ahead and let's run this entire thing. It should just work right away. So there it is. So it's just as fast as the filter XML. Now, this might be a little bit harder to build at first, but here is where we definitely get interesting. So let's say we wanted to build out our query to only get us the admin account. We don't care about test. We don't care about 1, 2, 3. We don't care about full test. All we really want to do is we want to investigate people that are trying the admin account. So the way that we would do that is we would come back into our XPATH. So we have our event. So first, let's just look at here. So we have our event. In event data, we have a target username, which is admin. So this is what we're going to want to pick. And this is in a data tag with the attribute of name, and the attribute name value is target username, and it's going to be equal to admin. So let's come back into our PowerShell. So now we know we have one closing bracket to get into system. So we want to get back into just between system because it's at that same level. So it's right at the same level of system, and event data are at the same level inside of Node. So we want to be at this level. So let's make sure that we only have one square bracket left at the end. So this is where we're going to put our event data. So let's do and event data, and then open and close square brackets. Now in here, it's going to be a data, and then our name is going to be target username. So let's go ahead and let's do data, and the data is going to be at name equals target username. And this is not going to be within that same square bracket. So we need to actually go out one square bracket at the same level as data here. And it's going to be equal to single quote, and then in here we're going to put admin. And let's just go ahead and let's run this. All right, and let's just run it entirely. So in here, now we only get our admins. So now this could be very, very useful. Let's say you built this out in a script here, and let's just do this. Username equals read host, and then we're going to put a prompt. Enter the username to search for. I think it actually puts a colon by itself. So we have our username here. And then in here, instead of admin, we're going to do a $ open and close parentheses to be able to put in a variable in here. And we're going to put in our username. So now, if we run this entire script, as you can see, it prompts me for the username. So let's just put in test. And it only gets me the events with test. So I could run it again, search for admin, and it will only give me the admins that have a bad login. So this could be a super useful tool to give a help desk or anything like that. Or if you just want to search for very, very specific people that are failing, you just add a little prompt at the beginning and you specify this target username. Now there is wildcards. So if we just do we start this. I believe the wildcard in XPath is a star. I could be wrong on this. And yes. So I'm not sure if it actually allows you to do wildcards or not in XPath. I could be totally wrong on that, but let me just see if this works. Yeah, so I don't think that you could do wildcards. But even then, like having that variable to add into your search definitely really helps. And of course, if you wanted a wildcard, you might not really even need this target username. So that's what I would probably do. Now, of course, there are a lot of resources online for XPath. I am definitely not a XPath expert. I just kind of know how to do the XPath filters on Event Viewer. But there's a lot of other uses for XPath in different things. Like you can use it in Celium for web automation, as we've seen in our video. And all we did back then was just copy the XPath from our developer tools. So those are all different uses of XPath, and there's a lot of different operators you can use in XPath. But that is, I would say, probably one of the most versatile ways to do searches in the event viewer is definitely with Get-WinEvent, and then do a filter XPath. It's fairly easy to build out. We'll be taking a look at the filter hash table in the next video. So that one is just using a hash table that you build out in PowerShell, and then you apply it to the Get-WinEvent, similarly to how you would do the filter XML. But I just wanted to really do the XML and the XPath together because they kind of go hand in hand. Because if we look at this this rule here, like event system provider at name event ID, and we go into the XML, it is a very similar query. So if you ever struggle with how to do your XPath, if you do the XML query and look at that select path, it could probably give you a lot of hints on how to actually handle your XPath and create your XPath. So that's pretty much about it for the Get-WinEvent with filter XML and filter XPath. If you guys have any questions or any comments, leave them down below and hit the like button and the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to be notified when the next video comes out. And I will see you on the next video.